Chapter 9. The Text. Beth barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw 2 dragons, 2 sets of green eyes, 2 smiles, 2 kisses. Finally, shortly after sunrise, she gave up. She wandered into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Almost empty milk, 3 eggs, and 1 strawberry yogurt, expired. She frowned. I really need groceries. Working overtime nearly every day had become her excuse for everything. No groceries. Too tired to cook. Too exhausted to do much beyond work and sleep. She smiled. Maybe. That was about to change. Her fingers hovered over Chad's number. No, not yet. If she texted them now, they'd be at her door before she had brushed her teeth. She laughed. Actually, they probably would. She showered, styled her hair, pulled on jeans and a soft emerald blouse and added a little lip gloss. Simple, comfortable. Then finally picked up her phone. Would you 2 like to go to brunch? She deliberately avoided mentioning the answer. She wanted to tell them in person. 4 minutes later. A blue F250 pulled into her driveway. Beth laughed. I knew it. She unlocked the front door. The moment it opened, she disappeared. 2 enormous men wrapped her in one gigantic embrace. Princess, we missed you. Warmth, laughter, solid muscle, dragon contentment. Beth's feet nearly left the floor. Guys. No response. Guys. Still hugging, she turned her head sideways. I can't breathe. Instantly, both released her. Oh. I'm sorry. Are you all right? Before she could answer, 2 large sets of hands were already gently running along her arms, checking, searching, looking for injuries. Beth blinked. I'm fine. You stopped breathing. Because you were crushing me. Both twins looked appropriately horrified. We hugged too hard. You think? Both twins looked genuinely guilty. Beth laughed. I'm teasing. They visibly relaxed. Then Chad smiled. We'll work on human hugs. Beth smiled and nodded. She suggested they go to the cafe where she had met with Chase. She knew that now, then noticed Chad sliding behind the steering wheel. How do you know where we're going? Chad smiled. I was there. No, you were at the restaurant. I was in the truck. She stared. The whole time? He nodded. King cab. Beth looked at him. So, you sat in a truck during our entire date? He shrugged. I wasn't alone. My brother was with me. Beth blinked. No, wait. You weren't physically with him. No, but I experienced everything he did. She frowned. What? Chase smiled. Through our bond. If I'd never been there, Chad continued, I'd still know the route. You would? Beth was confused. I have Chase's memories, and he has mine. Beth leaned back. That, she shook her head, is both fascinating. Both twins waited, and just a little creepy. They laughed. We're getting used to that word. Princess treatment. The cafe was busier than Elizabeth had ever seen it. The hostess smiled warmly as she led them toward a U-shaped booth near the windows. No sooner had they sat down than a cheerful waitress appeared. Good morning. Can I start you off with something to drink? Coffee all around. Orange juice for Elizabeth. The waitress disappeared with their order. Elizabeth started to slide out of the booth. A warm hand settled gently on her shoulder. She looked up. Chad smiled. Princess, would you allow us to fix your plate? She blinked. My plate. He nodded. She smiled. I can manage. We know, but we'd rather do it. Beth was still adjusting to how they finished each other's thoughts. Elizabeth looked from Chad to Chase. You don't have to wait on me. We know. It's simply what dragons do. Chase smiled. We enjoy taking care of our mate. But I'm perfectly capable. Again, Chad chuckled softly. We know. His smile softened. Please, Princess, we want to cherish you. Let us start here. Something inside her melted. She sighed dramatically. I have a feeling I'm going to lose a lot of arguments with you two. Both dragons looked remarkably pleased. Before she could change her mind, they disappeared toward the buffet. Elizabeth watched them go, tall, handsome, confident. Even walking across a crowded restaurant seemed effortless for them. Then she noticed other women watching them too. Some smiled openly, others whispered to the friend beside them. More than one looked from the twins back to Elizabeth. She lowered her eyes. The familiar voice she'd battled most of her life quietly returned. Look at them. Now look at you. The women weren't cruel. They weren't laughing. If anything, they looked curious. But that almost made it worse. Those two? Why her? She suddenly became painfully aware of herself. Her curves, her brown skin, her clearance rack blouse. The fact that she'd never once imagined men who looked like Chad and Chase would ever notice her, let alone look at her as though she were the center of their universe. The old doubts settled quietly around her heart. You don't belong beside them. She hated that voice. It had followed her since childhood, through foster homes, school, dating, work, always whispering, not enough. She didn't notice the twins returning. Chad carefully placed one plate in front of her, then another. Elizabeth stared. Why do I have 2 plates? Chase looked surprised. Because we couldn't decide. She looked from one overflowing plate to the other. You solved that problem by bringing me everything. It seemed logical. She couldn't help laughing. I can't eat all of this. You don't have to, Chad said. We simply wanted you to have every choice. Before Elizabeth could pick up her fork, Chase speared a bite of scrambled eggs and held it toward her. Here. She froze, then looked around the restaurant in horror. Several people were definitely watching now. She gently lowered his hand. No. Both twins looked confused. No. You can't feed me in a restaurant, Beth protested, her voice a whisper. But, Chase frowned. He whispered back. You're our mate. I know. And dragons feed their mates. I know. So, Elizabeth smiled apologetically. When we're alone. Understanding slowly dawned on both brothers. Oh, when we're alone, Chase repeated. They both smiled. I can do that. Elizabeth nodded gratefully. Thank you. Elizabeth picked up her fork. She tried to focus on the food. Instead, her eyes drifted across the restaurant once more. Another woman looked toward their table, then smiled politely. Elizabeth quickly looked away. The old doubts settled quietly inside her chest. You don't belong beside them. She hated that voice. It had followed her since childhood. She lowered her gaze to her plate. She didn't notice both dragons becoming instantly alert. Her scent had changed. The happiness they'd felt only moments before had become threaded with uncertainty. Without exchanging a word, both twins shifted closer on either side of her in the curved booth, not enough to crowd her, just closer. Chad's arm came to rest naturally along the back of the booth behind her, not around her, simply there, present, solid, safe. On her other side, Chase's knee brushed lightly against hers beneath the table as he settled nearer. Neither man spoke. Neither asked what was wrong. They simply surrounded their mate with quiet reassurance. Beth noticed. She looked from one to the other. What? She asked in surprise. Both twins looked genuinely puzzled. What do you mean? Chad asked. You both just moved. We did. She narrowed her eyes suspiciously. Yes. The twins exchanged a brief glance. Neither of them had consciously decided to move. Finally, Chase shrugged. You seemed like you needed us closer. Elizabeth stared at them. I didn't say anything. You didn't have to. Silence settled over the table. Beth looked back down at her plate. That should have felt strange. Instead, it felt comforting. Chad smiled. We thought we'd celebrate tonight. Beth looked between them. Celebrate? Chase nodded. Assuming, he glanced at his brother. There's something worth celebrating. Neither twin dared say the words. Have you decided? Will you start a new life with us? The question hung silently between them. Beth saw it immediately. She smiled, thought about Anna, thought about 2 dragons purring beneath her hands, thought about waking up that morning ready to see them again. Finally, she answered, I think. Both dragons became completely still. This sounds like a very good reason to celebrate. The relief that washed across both brothers was almost comical. Neither asked another question, neither needed to. It wasn't an answer, but somehow it was. After confirming their reservation, Chase slipped his phone back into his pocket. Our celebration dinner is arranged. He smiled at Beth. We'll be dining at Ristorante Italiano this evening. Beth's smile was immediate. I loved that restaurant. She nodded enthusiastically. The food was amazing. Then, almost without thinking, she whispered to herself, I don't have another dress to wear. The words were so soft she barely heard them herself. Unfortunately, dragon hearing was far better than human hearing. What was that, princess? Chad asked gently. Beth froze. She hadn't meant to say it out loud. A faint blush crept into her cheeks. Oh, she looked down at her hands. I was just thinking. She hesitated before admitting it. I only have the one dress nice enough for a fancy restaurant. The black one. She looked up apologetically. I really wasn't expecting to eat in places like that. The twins looked at each other, then smiled. Chase snapped his fingers. Problem solved. Beth looked between them suspiciously. How? We're going shopping, she blinked. I wasn't asking you to buy me a dress. We know, Chad smiled, but we'd like to anyway. Princess, every celebration deserves a beautiful dress, and we'd very much like to see you wearing one. Beth sighed. I don't think I'm ever going to win these discussions. Chase laughed. No, you probably won't. She rolled her eyes dramatically. I figured. Then she smiled. Fine, but I know exactly where I want to go. Oh, the boutique where I found my black dress. She smiled to herself. If we're buying another dress, I'd like to buy it from them. The twins exchanged an approving glance. Then that's exactly where we'll go. The moment they stepped inside, she instinctively started toward the sales rack. She never made it. The saleswoman, remembering her from only a few days earlier, intercepted them with a warm smile. Back again so soon? Beth smiled, a little embarrassed. She wasn't about to tell the twins she had bought the dress she'd worn to dinner on the same day. I have another dinner date. The saleswoman's eyes flicked briefly toward Chad and Chase before returning to Beth. I see. The saleswoman smiled. I have several options for you. Within minutes, dresses were draped over the fitting room door. Beautiful dresses, elegant dresses, expensive dresses. Beth looked at the first price tag, then let out another quiet sigh. Chad noticed. As Beth reached for the next dress, he gently turned the tag over before handing it to her. Better? She laughed. No, it just means I can't see the number. I know. His smile was completely unrepentant. That was the idea. She shook her head. You are not making this easy. No, princess. We're trying to make it easier. He opened the fitting room door for her. Back at her house, Beth pulled another dress from the garment bag. Then another, then another. Her eyes grew wider with each one. Shoes, another pair, a matching handbag. She looked up in disbelief. You, her voice caught. You bought all of them. Neither twin looked particularly apologetic. You even bought the blue one. It had been the most expensive. You smiled when you wore it, Chase said simply. I smiled because it was beautiful. We noticed. Beth looked back into the garment bag. There are 7 dresses. There are. And how many pairs of shoes? Chad looked thoughtfully toward the ceiling. I believe 5. Elizabeth slowly lowered herself onto the edge of her bed. This must have cost a fortune. Neither twin answered. That told her everything. She looked from one to the other. I can't let you spend this kind of money on me. The brothers exchanged a glance. Then, without hesitation, they answered together. If you wanted something, even if it was the last coin we possessed, we would happily spend it on anything you wanted. The room fell completely silent. Beth stared at them. Neither had raised their voice. Neither was trying to impress her. They had simply spoken the truth. Chad smiled gently. Dragons provide for their mate, Chase nodded. It isn't about the dresses. It isn't about money. It's about seeing something that brings you joy and making sure it's yours. Beth's eyes filled unexpectedly. No one has ever... She stopped, unable to finish. Chad walked over and gently took her hands. Princess, our greatest treasure, he exchanged a look with his brother. Will never be gold. Chase smiled. It will always be you. Beth felt tears sting her eyes. She laughed softly through them. You two, she shook her head, are impossible. Chad smiled. We've been told that. She looked at all the dresses covering her bed, then back at the 2 dragons who looked happier buying them than she had been trying them on. Finally, she sighed. I suppose. Both dragons became very attentive. There's no chance you take any of this back. The twins looked horrified. Absolutely not. She couldn't help laughing. I figured. Then she pointed a finger at them. But this is becoming a habit. What is? She smiled. Spoiling me. Both dragons smiled. Good. Elizabeth insisted on putting away her new clothes herself. I've got it. We know, Chad answered with a smile. But, Chase started. Beth interrupted. But they're my clothes. They are, they both agreed. Then I should put them away. Neither dragon really understood the distinction, but they respected it. So instead of helping, they watched. Elizabeth smiled. Thank you. One by one she hung the dresses in her closet, lined up the shoes. Every so often she would pause, still amazed they were really hers. She caught the twins smiling at her. What? You smile differently when you're happy, Chase said. Her cheeks warmed. She looked back into the closet before they could see her blush. When the last dress was finally hung, Chad quietly cleared his throat. An afternoon nap. Princess, she turned. It's been a very long day. And we still have dinner this evening, she nodded. So? Our dragons are becoming concerned. About what? You. She looked confused. I'm fine. You say that. Chase smiled gently. But you're tired. She started to argue, then stopped. She was tired, more than she had realized. The emotional roller coaster of the last 2 days had finally caught up with her. We don't want you exhausting yourself. Chad spoke so gently, it was impossible to mistake his concern. If you'll rest for a little while, we'll wake you in plenty of time to get ready for dinner. Elizabeth stared. A nap? Both twins nodded. I haven't taken a nap since elementary school. Neither laughed. To dragons, that sounded tragic, based on their knowledge of human frailties. Finally she sighed. I suppose. A short one wouldn't hurt. She glanced toward the bedside clock. I'll set an alarm. No need, Princess. We'll wake you. She looked from one twin to the other. Then a mischievous smile slowly appeared. Only on one condition. Both dragons instantly became attentive. What condition? You two take a nap with me. Silence. Complete silence. Then, both dragons became ridiculously pleased. We accept. Immediately, without negotiation. Elizabeth laughed. I thought you might. She climbed onto the bed first, carefully arranging herself on top of the comforter. I'm not getting under the blankets. Why not? Chase asked. Because I'm taking a nap. Not hibernating. He considered that. Reasonable. She settled onto her back in the center of the bed. Both brothers climbed onto the bed, one on either side of her, leaving what they believed was a respectful amount of space. Elizabeth smiled to herself. You two look nervous. We've never shared a bed with our mate before, Chad admitted honestly. That stole her smile. Neither had she. So, when do we need to leave? In 1 week, Chad answered. Beth frowned. But I need to give a 2-week notice at work. The twins exchanged a glance. Princess, Chad spoke gently. We hope you'll be able to make an exception. Beth immediately thought of Mr. Smithers. Years of stolen credit, stolen bonuses, broken promises. He certainly hadn't earned another 2 weeks of her loyalty. A small smile tugged at her lips. I think... She nodded. I can make 1 week work. Smithers would complain, probably loudly, but for once, it wouldn't matter. She wasn't going to let him stand between her and her future. And how long is the flight? We'll talk about that over dinner, Chase answered. What should I? Princess, Chase interrupted her. His voice was wonderfully gentle. You've started asking questions because you're trying not to fall asleep. She blinked. I am. How did he know she was stalling? Chase smiled. You've asked several questions in less than a minute. And you yawned twice. I did? You did. Elizabeth laughed softly. I guess I'm not as awake as I thought. No, they agreed with her. You aren't. She looked from one twin to the other, then finally closed her eyes, almost immediately, without either twin consciously deciding. They shifted closer, just a few inches. Elizabeth felt the movement. I didn't think they could possibly get any closer, she thought without opening her eyes. Warmth surrounded her from both sides. Safe, comfortable, impossible. She had never imagined that being gently squished between two enormous fire-breathing dragons would become the safest she'd ever felt. Within moments, she was asleep. Elizabeth's breathing gradually settled into the slow, even rhythm of deep sleep. Neither twin moved. Neither had the slightest intention of sleeping. For hundreds of years they had dreamed about watching their mate sleep peacefully beside them. Neither dragon was about to waste a single moment of it. Through their bond, Chase smiled. She's beautiful. Chad's dragon rumbled contentedly. Most beautiful in world, the humans silently agreed. A loose curl had fallen across Elizabeth's cheek. Without waking her, Chad gently brushed it back. She sighed softly in her sleep and unconsciously smuggled deeper between them. Both dragons became ridiculously pleased. Mate came closer. She did. Silence settled again. Not awkward, comfortable. The kind of silence only twins who had shared 3 centuries together could enjoy. Finally, Chase turned the conversation toward practical matters. Restaurant? Confirmed. Private dining room. Chef Mervyn closed the restaurant to everyone else. Chase smiled. He'll be disappointed he can't tell Mother himself. He'll survive. Another comfortable silence. Then, the limousine? Reserved. Same driver, 6 o'clock. Good. Chase looked back at Elizabeth. She smiled in her sleep. His dragon immediately became distracted again. Mate smiling, maybe dreaming about us. Chad chuckled silently. Or dragons, same thing. Both dragons looked entirely pleased with that answer. After another few quiet moments, Chase's thoughts grew more serious. We need to call Mother. Chad nodded. As soon as our princess says yes. She already has. Her heart has. Her mouth hasn't. That earned a quiet laugh through the bond. Mother will cry. She'll cry before we finish saying we found her. Father will pretend not to, then cry anyway. Both brothers smiled. Their parents had waited almost as long as they had. Another peaceful silence settled over the room. Finally, Chad spoke again. She doesn't know how extraordinary she is. Chase looked at Elizabeth's sleeping face. No, she still sees herself through other people's eyes. His dragon let out a low, unhappy rumble. Wrong, very wrong. Chad gently tucked the blanket a little higher over her shoulder. She worries about dresses, price tags, whether she's pretty enough. His chest tightened. Whether she's worthy of us. The very thought hurt. Because from the moment they'd seen her, they'd wondered whether they were worthy of her. Chase reached over and lightly touched one of Elizabeth's curls. 300 years. And fate gave us someone who doesn't know she's priceless. Neither spoke for a long moment. Finally, Chad made a quiet promise. Then we'll spend the rest of our lives showing her. Chase smiled, patiently, one day at a time, one smile at a time, until she sees herself the way we do. Both dragons rumbled in wholehearted agreement. Cherish, mate, always, outside. The afternoon sun slowly crossed the Seattle sky. Inside, two ancient dragons remained perfectly content, simply watching the woman they loved sleep. Neither noticed that Elizabeth's hand had drifted in her sleep until it rested lightly against both of theirs. Neither brother dared move. The afternoon passed in peaceful silence. Elizabeth slept soundly between them. Neither twin closed his eyes. Neither dragon had the slightest intention of sleeping. Their mate was resting. Watching over her was enough. Eventually Chase glanced toward the bedside clock. Time. Chad nodded reluctantly. Dinner. Neither wanted to wake her. His dragon sighed. Want, mate, all to ourselves. So do I, Chase admitted. Soon. Both dragons knew what soon meant. The mating. When Elizabeth would truly belong with them. No more borrowed time. No more saying goodnight. No more leaving her behind. Just home. Chase smiled to himself. At least we have the entire restaurant. No interruptions, no curious people, just us. His dragon rumbled in satisfaction. Good. Then another thought occurred to Chase. Do you think she'll let us feed her tonight? Chad laughed silently. I was wondering the same thing. She wouldn't let us at brunch. Too many people watching. Tonight there won't be anyone but Chef Mervyn. Chase's dragon became almost hopeful. Maybe dessert? Chad smiled. Perhaps one bite would be enough. His dragon disagreed immediately. Many bites. Chase's dragon wholeheartedly agreed. Feed, mate, all dessert. Both brothers laughed quietly through the bond. Let's not overwhelm her. We've already learned that humans have boundaries. His dragon sounded thoroughly unconvinced. Strange boundaries. We'll learn them. Patiently. One strange human custom at a time. Reluctantly, Chad reached over and gently brushed one of Elizabeth's curls away from her face. Princess. His voice was barely above a whisper. Elizabeth. Chase called her name. Her eyelashes fluttered. Slowly, beautiful hazel eyes opened. The first thing she saw was Chad and Chase smiling down at her as though she were the most precious person in the world. She smiled automatically, then frowned. You too. They waited. Look awfully awake. We are. She pushed herself up onto her elbows. Did either of you sleep? The twins exchanged a quick glance. Neither wanted to lie to her. No, Chad admitted. We were too busy watching you sleep. Silence. Both brothers waited. 1, 2, 3. Elizabeth smiled. You know, She shook her head affectionately. That's creepy, right? Both twins burst into laughter. Not polite laughter. Genuine, delighted laughter. It's a dragon thing, Princess, Chase said, still grinning. We've waited 300 years to watch our mate sleep. Beth couldn't help laughing too. When you put it that way. She shook her head. It's still a little creepy. It probably always will be, Chad admitted. She smiled. I can live with that. The twins returned to their house while Elizabeth got ready for dinner. Standing in front of her closet, she studied the beautiful dresses hanging there. Her eyes settled almost immediately on the one she'd loved the most, the one she'd quietly put back after seeing the price tag. She smiled. I guess you really are mine now. The rich emerald fabric hugged her curves beautifully, making her feel elegant without pretending to be someone she wasn't. She turned slowly in front of the mirror. For once, she didn't think about what the dress had cost. She simply enjoyed how it made her feel. Beautiful. She thought about the twins, the dresses, the shoes, the hugs, the way they looked at her, the way they'd watched her sleep, as though there was nowhere else in the world they wanted to be. Would she ever become accustomed to being spoiled like this? Honestly, she didn't know. It would take some adjustment, a lot of adjustment. But if dragon courtship meant being cherished this completely, she supposed learning to accept it might not be such a terrible thing. After all, it didn't look like Chad and Chase had any intention of stopping. Chapter 10. A Private Celebration. The limousine rolled to a smooth stop in front of Restaurant Italiano. Beth smiled as the driver opened her door. I still can't believe I'm getting to come here twice in 1 week. Chad offered his arm. We're rather fond of this place ourselves. I understand why. As they stepped through the front doors, Beth looked around in surprise. The restaurant was empty. No conversations, no clinking glasses, no couples enjoying dinner. Only soft music drifted through the dining room. She stopped walking. There's no one here. Mervyn appeared from the kitchen, wearing his usual white chef's jacket. His smile was warm. There you are. He greeted the twins first, before bowing his head respectfully toward Beth. Welcome back. Beth looked around once more. Are you closed? Chad smiled. Just for tonight. Her eyes widened. You rented the restaurant. We wanted our celebration to be private. Chase smiled. And he looked almost hopeful. We wanted to be able to feed you without embarrassing you. Beth felt heat creep into her cheeks. She wasn't sure whether to laugh or hide. It wasn't the people, she admitted quietly. Both twins looked surprised. It wasn't. She shook her head. No. She laughed nervously. The idea of 2 incredibly handsome men wanting to feed me. She looked away. Does things to my imagination. Neither dragon understood. Both humans immediately did. Chase coughed into his fist. Chad suddenly found the wine list fascinating. Beth laughed harder. See, I embarrassed all 3 of us. The twins looked at one another, then simultaneously decided to change the subject. Shall we eat? Beth smiled. I think that's an excellent idea. Mervyn had prepared a tasting menu, small courses, beautifully plated. Every dish seemed somehow better than the last. By dessert, Beth couldn't remember ever feeling so relaxed. She looked from Chad to Chase, then quietly asked the question she'd been carrying all day. Why me? Neither answered immediately. She looked down at her plate. I'm not. She searched for the right words. Special. You both look like you stepped out of an Esquire magazine. She laughed softly. You're handsome. Successful. Obviously wealthy. She looked back up. So why would two men like you want to spend forever with someone like me? Silence settled over the table, not uncomfortable, heartbroken, because neither dragon understood how their mate could possibly think so little of herself. Finally, Chad reached across the table. He took her hand. No, princess. His voice was quiet. We didn't choose you. We found you. Her eyes met his. Our dragons knew you were our mate the moment we saw you. There was never another possibility. They were doing the twin thing. Beth had stopped being surprised. Chase nodded. Shifters call it fate. We don't really understand how it works, but our dragons always know. And immediately after, we felt the pull deep within our souls. He smiled gently. Some shifters never find their true mate. Some eventually choose someone they care for. They build good lives together. But when a true mate appears, there is no decision, no comparison, no second guessing. Beth listened quietly, still trying to understand. If that's true, she looked between them. Why did you test me? The twins exchanged a glance. Chad sighed. Because of the prophecy. Our dragons never agreed with the tests. But we needed the proof, not because we doubted you. They both smiled sadly. Because we knew what our people would ask. He explained the prophecy once more, not as a lesson, as the burden they'd carried for 300 years. By the time he finished, Beth understood. You weren't testing whether I was your mate. No. You were trying to have evidence for your people. Exactly. She squeezed their hands. I wish I'd known that before. So do we. A quiet silence settled over the table. Neither twin rushed to fill it. Finally, Chase spoke. There is one thing. Beth looked at him. His confidence had disappeared. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. We've never actually asked. Beth blinked. You haven't. Both brothers shook their heads. Our dragons accepted you the moment we met. Chase smiled softly. But your heart still deserves a choice. They each reached across the table and gently took one of her hands. So, Chad's voice was almost hesitant. Princess, will you officially accept us as your mates? For a long moment, Beth simply looked at them. 300 years. They had waited 300 years. Not because they wanted any mate, because they had wanted her, their fated mate. She thought about the library, the first dinner, the dragons, the shopping trip, the nap, the way they'd watched over her while she slept, the way they looked at her, as though she was the greatest treasure in their world. A slow smile spread across her face. I think both dragons held perfectly still. I've been saying yes for a while now. Neither brother breathed. Beth squeezed both their hands. I just didn't realize it. She looked at Chase, then back to Chad. So, her smile widened. Yes, I officially accept you. Both dragons erupted with joy. The force of the emotion rolled through the bond so strongly that Beth actually laughed. Oh my. She looked from one twin to the other. Was that your dragons? Neither brother trusted himself to speak. Both simply nodded. A soft sniffle drifted from the kitchen. Beth looked in that direction. Is someone crying? Mervyn, who had been pretending to organize plates just inside the kitchen door, looked up. His eyes met the twins. Both gave him identical looks of alarm. Please don't tell her. Understanding immediately, Mervyn smiled warmly. My wife. Beth looked concerned. Is she all right? Oh, she's fine, Mervyn assured her. She's chopping onions for tomorrow. Beth nodded sympathetically. Chopping onions makes me cry too. Satisfied with the explanation, Beth turned her attention back to the twins. Across the table, Chad and Chase exchanged the smallest glance of relief. From somewhere in the kitchen, Clara quietly dabbed at her eyes. She had waited longer than the twins themselves to see the prophecy fulfilled. The long way home. The limousine waited outside the restaurant. The driver hurried forward and opened the rear door. Chase held out his hand. "Princess." He smiled toward the spacious back seat. "Would you sit in the middle tonight?" Beth looked at the wide leather seat, then back at him. "The middle?" Chad nodded. "That way we're both beside you." She smiled, slipped into the limousine, and settled into the center of the seat. Only after she was comfortably seated did Chase slide in on one side of her. Chad followed from the other. The door closed softly behind them. Almost immediately, she felt two familiar, comforting presences beside her. Their shoulders brushed hers. One rested an arm along the back of the seat behind her. The other mirrored him. Not confining, simply close, safe. Beth laughed. "So, this was the plan all along," Chase smiled. "We've been accused of being predictable and overprotective," Chad added. Beth leaned back between them. "I think I'm beginning to like both." The driver glanced into the mirror. "Straight home, gentlemen." Chad looked at Chase. Chase looked at Beth. Then Chad smiled. "If our princess doesn't mind." "Let's take the scenic route." Beth looked surprised. She smiled, enjoying the idea of a ride in the countryside with them both. The limousine rolled quietly away. For several minutes, no one spoke. The city slowly gave way to tree-lined roads. The evening sunlight filtered through tall evergreens. Small lakes reflected the orange sky. Beth rested her head against the seat. "It's beautiful. The scenery reminds us of home," Chase said softly. She smiled. "I can hardly wait to see it." Neither twin could stop smiling. Soon, after another quiet mile, Beth became aware of something. Neither brother had tried to hold her hand. Neither had wrapped an arm around her. Neither had crowded her. Instead, they simply sat beside her, content. She looked from one to the other. "You know," both turned toward her. "I expected dragons to be," she searched for the word, "more overwhelming." Chase laughed. "We're trying very hard not to overwhelm you." "I noticed," she smiled. "Thank you." Neither answered. They didn't need to. A few more peaceful miles passed, almost without thinking. Beth shifted slightly. Her shoulder brushed Chad's arm. A few moments later, her knee lightly touched Chase's. Neither dragon moved away. Neither moved closer. They simply let her choose the distance. After another minute, Beth sighed happily. "I think." "What?" "I'm finally starting to relax." Both dragons became absurdly pleased. Their mate was relaxing with them. It was a very good beginning. As the limousine neared her neighborhood, Chad glanced at Chase before turning back to Beth. "Princess." She looked at him. "We have a favor to ask." Beth smiled. "That sounds serious." "It isn't," Chad assured her. "We have something we'd like to show you before you go home." Beth tilted her head. "What is it?" The twins exchanged a quick smile. "We'd rather it be a surprise." Her eyes narrowed playfully. "I don't know. You two don't have the best track record with surprises." Both brothers winced. "Fair," Chase admitted. "We're trying to improve." Chad smiled. "So, would you be willing to stop by our house for a little while after dinner?" Beth studied both of them. They weren't assuming. They were asking. After everything that had happened, that mattered. A smile spread across her face. "I'd like that." The relief that crossed both their faces made her laugh. "I knew it," Beth said suspiciously. "Knew what?" Chase asked innocently. You've done something. Neither brother answered, which was answer enough. The limousine pulled quietly into the driveway of a beautiful 2-story craftsman home. Beth looked out the window. It's beautiful. I didn't know this house had gone on the market. She had admired it before. It was larger than her house. Chad smiled. We hoped you'd like it. The chauffeur opened the door before either twin could move. Beth stepped out slowly, looking from the wide front porch to the flower beds lining the walkway. It doesn't look like a bachelor house, Chase laughed. It wasn't. It was professionally staged when we bought it. We purchased that furniture as well, Beth nodded. That explains why everything matches. It saved us a great deal of shopping. She smiled. I can appreciate that. Chad unlocked the front door. Welcome, he caught himself, to our home. Beth smiled, pretending not to notice the brief hesitation. The moment she stepped inside, her attention wasn't drawn to the soaring ceiling, or the elegant staircase, or the spacious living room. Instead, she turned immediately toward the kitchen. Oh, neither twin spoke, they simply watched. The kitchen was enormous, a center island nearly as large as her dining table. Professional stainless steel appliances, double ovens, a 6-burner gas range, beautiful glass front cabinets stretching almost to the ceiling. She slowly walked farther inside. This, she ran her fingertips lightly across the polished quartz countertop, is my dream kitchen. The twins exchanged a pleased look. Beth turned slowly in a circle. I could spend all day in here. Our dragons were hoping you'd say that. She laughed. I don't think I've ever been jealous of a kitchen before. We'll have to fix that. She looked at Chad. What? You won't need to be jealous. His smile softened. It already belongs to the woman we'd like to cook with, Chase added. Her heart skipped. She looked away before he noticed, or at least she hoped he hadn't noticed. Chad looked at Chase. Chase nodded. Then Chad turned back to Beth. There is something we'd like to ask. She leaned lightly against the island. What is it? The twins exchanged another glance. We were hoping, Chad chose his words carefully, that you might stay here with us until we leave next weekend. Chase finished their dual explanation. Silence. Beth looked from one twin to the other. Neither spoke, neither pushed. Finally, she folded her arms. So, you just want to get me into bed? The reaction was immediate. Both dragons recoiled so violently the twins actually took a step backward. No, the answer came in perfect unison. Beth blinked. She hadn't expected such a strong reaction. Chad recovered first. Princess, his expression was almost horrified. Our mating ceremony must take place at home. It is one of the most sacred traditions of our people. We've waited 300 years. We can wait one more week. Chase nodded. We do want to sleep beside you. Beth raised an eyebrow. You do? He smiled sheepishly. Yes, but only sleep. Our dragons rest better when they're close to you. And, he glanced at Chad, our bed is much larger than yours. Beth laughed. That's your selling point? It seemed practical. She couldn't argue with that. Chad smiled gently. We simply want to spend time together. Cook meals, talk, plan our trip, watch a movie, wake up beside you, or rather watch her sleep, the twins thought, and get to know our mate. Beth searched both of their faces. There wasn't the slightest hint of deception, only hope. She felt herself relaxing. I do have one condition. Both dragons became instantly attentive. What is it? I need to go to work tomorrow. And every morning this week, she sighed. I need to work out my notice. The twins nodded immediately. Of course, we'll take you and pick you up. Beth opened her mouth, closed it again. You don't have to do that. We know. We want to. She laughed softly. I had a feeling you'd say that. She looked around the beautiful house one more time, then back at the two men who had spent every moment since meeting her trying to make her feel valued. A warm feeling settled quietly inside her. Okay, I'll stay. Neither twin celebrated outwardly, but their dragons roared in satisfaction. Outwardly, both smiled with quiet relief. Their mate had chosen to spend the week with them. For now, that was enough. Settling in. After stopping by Beth's house to collect an overnight bag, they returned to the twins' home. The drive back felt different, comfortable, as though staying the night had already become the most natural thing in the world. Beth carried her bag into the master bathroom and looked around. I won't be long. We'll go change in the guest bedroom. Beth nodded as she quietly closed the bathroom door behind her. A few minutes later, the twins were back and pacing. Not because they were impatient, because they were excited. Their mate was staying. Inside the bathroom, Beth caught sight of herself in the mirror and smiled. This was really happening. She carefully removed the pearls from her curls before beginning her nightly routine. Outside, Chase glanced toward the closed door for what had to be the 10th time. Is she all right? I'm sure she is. Another minute passed. Finally, the bathroom door opened. Beth stepped out, smiling apologetically. Sorry, I still need to do my hair before bed. Both twins smiled. My hair just takes a little longer. The twins smiled. We're happy to wait. Beth settled onto the edge of the bed. With practiced hands, she gently loosened the curls until her hair flowed freely past her shoulders. Both dragons became completely fascinated. Mate beautiful, very beautiful. She divided the thick curls into sections and began weaving them into 2 loose braids for the night. The room grew completely silent. Neither twin wanted to interrupt. They simply watched her hands move with quiet confidence. Chase smiled through the bond. One day, she'll let us do that for her. Chad's dragon rumbled hopefully. Braidmate's hair every night. The thought pleased them far more than either brother expected. Beth tied off the end of the braid and looked up. You two are awfully quiet. She was a little embarrassed at their focused attention. Chad smiled. We were watching. She laughed. I noticed. You make everything look graceful. Her cheeks warmed. I've been braiding my own hair since I was little. We're still impressed. Beth shook her head, smiling. You dragons are easy to impress. The twins exchanged amused looks. No, just impressed by mate. Beth climbed onto the bed and settled in the middle beneath the covers. The twins waited until she looked comfortable before climbing in on either side of her, leaving what they believed was a respectful amount of space. For nearly 5 whole seconds. Then, almost without thinking, they both inched a little closer. Beth felt the movement. A smile tugged at her lips. I should have known. What? You two don't seem capable of staying very far away. The twins looked entirely unapologetic. Our dragons disagree with distance. Beth laughed quietly. I suppose that's another dragon thing. It is. She pulled the blanket a little higher. Good night, guys. Good night, princess. Within minutes, her breathing settled into the slow, peaceful rhythm of sleep. The twins smiled at one another. Their favorite part of the evening was just beginning. Thank you for continuing with Enchanted Realms on another incredible journey of love and fateful encounters. Beth said yes. Now it's time to pack up her old life and prepare for a new one. But leaving the past behind isn't as simple as packing a few boxes. Old doubts still linger. Old fears still have a voice. and the lies whispered into Beth's ears for most of her life may be harder to leave behind than anything she owns. Will those old wounds derail the future waiting for her? Or will Beth finally overcome the lies and believe she deserves everything her new life has to offer?